Hello everyone, welcome to another Redesigning School Counseling Tips video. The focus of this video is recruiting your school counseling council members. My name is Sue Reynolds and I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. So just as a reminder, your steering team has delegated responsibilities and one of your steering team members has the responsibility of recruiting your council members. So this person is not going to do all the work. They're probably going to further delegate responsibilities so that each of you will contact council members, potential council members, to invite them to serve on your council. Also, another of your steering team members is your documentation point person. And at the end of the recruitment process, the documentation point person will enter the names and contact information of your council members into the RSC online system. And just as a reminder, the steering team members, you are the worker bees. So you are managing the process of designing a comprehensive and effective school counseling program. So the first question we'll look at is why even convene an advisory council? I guess the easiest way to answer this question is to talk about my own experience as a school counselor. So for my first couple of years as a school counselor, I did not have a council. And what that meant is that every decision I made for my students was based on the perceptions of a white middle-class female. And that, I soon learned, was not the best way to design a program, that I really need to look at other perspectives and bring other people to the table to allow me to design the best school counseling program that I possibly could. So as you put together your council, one of the things that you want to remember is that your council should mirror the community. It should mirror the community in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, economic status, and also other differentiation that you might have in your community. So we're really wanting to make sure that you mirror the community. If you have Hispanic population in your community, we want to make sure that there are Hispanic folks on your council. If you have free and reduced lunch students in your school, we want to make sure that there are free and reduced lunch students and parents on your council. So as you're putting together your council, think about the different makeup of your community, and we want to mirror that makeup on your council. So as you're thinking about bringing people to the table, we want to look for folks that have the ability to allocate resources, especially the resource of time. So in a school, that's usually the school principal or some other administrator who has the ability to allocate time in your building. Also, we're looking for folks that have the ability to allocate funding. So in your community, that may be your community foundation or a large business or industry that has funding that they would be able to put behind the initiatives that you develop down the road. You also want people that have the ability to access kids and parents. Down the road, we're going to look at widening the delivery of the school counseling program so that the delivery is not only happening in a traditional model by counselors in the school building, but also looking at how can community organizations work with the counselors to deliver the program. So how can your Chamber of Commerce work with you? How can the Kiwanis Club work with you? Or the Purdue Extension Homemakers, how can they work with you to deliver your guidance curriculum? And then we know that students turn first to their parents for guidance, and that's the way we think it should be. So we want to make sure that your parents have good information about career development, academic development, and social emotional development. And that means we want that parent organizations to be at the table. So your local PTA or other parent organizations, band boosters or athletic boosters, we want representatives of those groups at the table as well. Then a third quality we're looking for is people that are knowledgeable, especially in global economics, and probably also in your mental health services in the community. We'll stress a lot global economics. We think that is one of the most important people to have at the table because they understand what your students need to look like 7 years from now, 10 years from now, in order for them to be able to be employable in a global economy. So that's, we think, really important. And then, as I mentioned, who can help you provide guidance lessons? You know, the Boy Scouts of America have a merit badge on careers. And so, you know, potentially they could help you deliver your guidance lessons about careers, come into your school to deliver those lessons or to supplement what you're doing in their Scout meetings. So who in the community can provide guidance lessons, be it the Kiwanis Club or the Lions Club or Rotary Club, or your faith-based organizations or boys clubs, girls clubs, you know, your youth serving organizations. So those are the folks that we want to bring to the table. So as you can imagine, your council makeup is going to be pretty large once you get all those folks to the table and all the diverse stakeholder groups that you have to the table. So it's not uncommon for a council to be 20 or 30 members. When I did this in my school, we had 30 members on our council. We will give you tools to conduct discussions with that large of a group, as well as consensus building tools to bring that group to kind of focus on a consensus area. Okay, so as you're looking at your council, another thing to think about is who in your community cares about your community's young people and cares about the community's economic development. Those are the folks that have a stake in school counseling, who care about how the community and the school is providing guidance for kids and counseling for kids. So, and then looking a little further, who can provide a unique perspective, who can reach young people, who can implement guidance activities, and who can provide resources, especially the resource of time, but also funding. Okay, so here is the council makeup that we recommend. On the left are folks that are in your school that we think that you should invite to be on your council. Teachers representing each grade level and every subject. So if you're in a high school or middle school, you want to make sure that you have a math teacher, an English teacher, and then, you know, for an elementary, you want to make sure you have a kindergarten teacher, a third grade teacher, or at least a primary grades teacher and the intermediary grades teacher. So in students, same thing. We want to make sure that we have all grade levels represented, as well as all programs, all curricula. So we want to make sure we have students that are engaged in your high ability programming, your general education, your special education. We want to make sure that we have kids that are that are college prep as well as career and tech ed prep. So, or military bound. You know, we're wanting to have all types of students represented in the council. And then your counselors, of course, administrators, it really helps them. Your administrators will be at a lot of meetings that you're not at, and for them to be able to be your voice at those meetings is really good. So I would certainly, if you can engage your principal or another administrator, that would be wonderful. And then I'd also look for educators from your feeder schools. So if you're a middle school, that would be you know, the elementary schools that feed into your school. And then also your receiving schools. So if you're middle school, that would be your high school. Okay, so then in the community, we're looking for parents of kids in all grade levels, parents of students in all those different programs, special ed parents, high ability parents, parents for students who are in general education, who are in career and tech ed, so all different kinds of parents. And then in business and industry, economic development we think is crucial. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then service clubs, your faith-based organizations, mental health organizations in your community, your youth serving organizations like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the Boys Club, 4-H, your community foundation, local government, your public library, because they can certainly do a lot of education in their displays about career development and academic development, etc. And then the media. When the media understand what you're doing as school counselors, you can get some really good coverage to help your community understand what school counseling is all about. Now, the folks on this page that have an asterisk next to them, those are folks that when you applied to to enroll in our Redesigning School Counseling, you made an assurance that you would recruit these people and have them be on your council. So the people that have stars after them, those are the required members of your council. Now, that does not mean that the other folks are not important, and I would certainly be looking at the community foundation, your local government, your public library. Those are all folks that can be critical in designing your school counseling program and later delivering it. Okay, so and one other thing here, and I'll show you this in a minute, we'll provide you with lots of resources to help you reach out to these folks. Okay, so let's talk about economic development. All of your counties, in Indiana have an economic development council, and we think, and from our experience, we have learned that those economic development councils are very, very interested in engaging with schools. Matter of fact, when we do work with manufacturing organizations, one of the complaints that we hear from manufacturers a lot is that they're unable to get engaged with their schools. Their schools' doors are not open to them. So we really encourage you to invite economic development to be on your council. The Economic Development Council to be on your council. The other thing is, if you think about it, the folks in business and industry, they have a good way of controlling the quality of their material resources, but they don't usually have an impact to influence their human resources. So as they work with you to design a school counseling program, they are really having a voice in designing their future workforce. So our experience has been that economic development will be eager to come to the table. And if not economic development, your Chamber of Commerce or someone in a business. And if you are using a business representative, we really suggest that you look for a large business or industry in your county. The other thing is that you make sure that the person that you're talking to in that business is the human resources person. So the human resources person is thinking about what's my workforce going to look like? What are my employees going to look like 5-10 years from now? And I think that they'll have valuable input for you as you're talking about how to prepare your students to be successful in a global economy. So one other thing I wanted to address here is that in my school counseling position, I worked for a while in a school that was in the middle of a cornfield and had no business and industry anywhere in our district except for one Dairy Queen and a mom and pop grocery store. So we had to think, about how do we recruit business and industry in our Economic Development Council to our little rural high school. And what we started to think about is that even in your rural elementary school or middle school, your students are going to be hired somewhere. And so in my community, in my school, we started thinking about who hires our college kids or our high school kids when they get out of college. And it was, business and industry in two large communities around us. They happen to be Franklin, Indiana, and Columbus, Indiana. And so we approached some of the industries and businesses in those organizations, Arvin Industry in Franklin and Cummins in Columbus, and we said, we know you don't exist within our school area, but you hire a lot of our graduates, and would you be willing to serve on our council and help to shape what those graduates look like in the future? And in both cases, they jumped on that opportunity. So even if you're in a cornfield, look outside of your school district for business and industry that surrounds you that tends to employ the parents in your community or your future graduates. Okay. In terms of the Community Foundation, we have found that is another really important partner to put onto your council. So your Community Foundation, they have two things that they'll bring to the table. One is they have knowledge of systems change. We have found that voice and their assistance with that to be very, very valuable. And then the other thing that they have is they have the ability to secure funding resources from a lot of different areas. So what they tend to not have is a lot of feet on the ground. Most community foundations have a very small staff. So for you to come in and say, you know, we'll do all the legwork and in redesigning, you know, the way our community provides guidance and counseling for kids, but we'd like you to be at the table just to be a thinker bee for us to, you know, help us think through this work. And in most cases, we have found that community foundations are open to that kind of partnership. Okay, and then finally, the service clubs, Rotary, Optimist, Kiwanis, Lions, your service clubs, in 80% of them, they have the words serving youth in their mission statements in Indiana. So really, they can be great helpers to you. For example, if you're talking to kids about how important it is to do a campus visit, they could organize a Saturday field trip where they would put kids on a bus and take them around to different types of post-secondary institutions to visit. So, you know, if you're, you know, working with helping kids understand about careers and you're putting together a career day, they can help you bring, you know, the career representatives to the table. So there's lots and lots of help that the service clubs can provide. So we really encourage you to bring those service clubs to the table. Okay, so one of the questions we get is, does each school need to have their own separate council? And the answer is yes, and we're pretty firm on that. And here's why. What we have found, and we actually have tried this the other way and it just doesn't work as well. What we have found is that students in each building are a little bit different. And because of that, we need each council to look at their school's individual data. That's really, really important. And the other thing we've found is that the politics differ in each building. And anytime we're talking about change, there's bound to be resistance. And so we want to make sure that there's a group of people looking at the resistance in each building if it, you know, crops up, or predicting where that resistance might come from and addressing the resistance, you know, before it happens. So we really want to be able to talk to a council that's specific to each school about the students in that school and the politics in that school. So we do want every school to have their own individual council. However, there will be times when the councils can work together. So let's say you're a district that every school in your district is participating in RSC. You could convene all of your councils into an auditorium or, you know, one place to do a presentation that is the prompt for the discussions. So in that presentation, you'd be introducing terminology and how to look at the data and, you know, that kind of stuff. You can do that all together and then break into discussion groups. So each council would be in its own discussion group to talk about their students' data or their school situation. So that's one way that you can kind of join all of the councils together. There will be some other ways that we talk about later when you get down to looking at your root causes. If multiple schools have the same root causes, the councils might join forces to talk about, you know, how do we best address that root cause as a district. So you know, we'll help you learn when to bring the councils together, and then when they need to have separate discussions. And again, before each of these discussions, we'll give you all the tools that you need. You'll have everything that you need to work with that council. Okay. So here are the council responsibilities. Their responsibility is to attend your meetings, so you'll let them know at the beginning how many meetings there are and when they are, and then it's their responsibility to make sure that they get to those meetings. And then during the meetings, they'll provide you with input and feedback. And that's valuable because, again, before I had my council, every decision was based on the perceptions of a white middle-class female. When I brought my council together, oh my gosh, the discussions became so much richer. So we want that input. And then after you implement, the council's also going to provide you feedback. So they'll be able to say, you know, that didn't go so well. We heard from our child that activity was a total bore and they just, you know, spaced out in the beginning of it, you know, or whatever. Or they might say, it's a wonderful activity. Thank you so much for doing that. So we want to put that council together to provide input and feedback. And then also As they start to work with you, and this will happen about halfway through the process in the first year, they will start to become your advocates. They will learn how much you as a school counselor care about the kids, and as they look at the data, they're going to see how needy the kids are, and then we're going to present data to them about how counselors use their time, and if you have a lot of non-program tasks, they're going to start to stand up and say, wait a minute, we have needy kids, we have counselors that can serve them. The counselors are spending their time doing things that have nothing to do with guidance and counseling, and they'll start to be your voice. So they'll become an advocate for school counseling. We see that over and over and over again. And then down the road, we hope that the light bulb will go off for them and they'll start to say, you know, our Kiwanis Club could take kids on a campus visits, or our Chamber of Commerce could come in and teach kids how to interview. So we hope that down the road they'll become implementers. We're not going to set that up to begin with. We're going to let them get engaged and see how cool and wonderful this initiative is and how needy your community's kids are. And then we're hoping that they can start to see, and we'll invite them to become involved in a different way as a program implementer. And again, when we get to that stage, we'll help you coordinate your school counseling competencies and your school counseling activities so that everything has a scope and sequence to it. And it really is kind of cool. In my own school, we did this, and you know, all of a sudden I felt like I had, you know, 12 different people that were joining forces with me to deliver the program. They were all volunteers. They were all from community organizations, but it was just really cool. So okay, so that's the responsibilities. Now, in the steering team manual, we'll go online in a second, but in the steering team manual, you're going to see that we give you all kinds of resources to help you do this. So the slides that I'm presenting right now will be here. This is a document that will help you brainstorm who are the community stakeholder groups in your community, and then who are we going to contact from each one of those stakeholder groups. Then here are talking points to make in that first introductory phone call to your council members. Here's an introductory letter. You could just, you know, use that as it's written and put your school's letterhead at the top, or edit it, you know, or not use it at all. It's just, these are just resources for you. Or you could take that letter and cut and paste it into an email and send it as an email out to the folks who said yes to your council. And then after your first meeting with the council, that will happen in a coming month, yeah, there's a sample follow-up letter that says thanks so much for coming, and you know, we really want the council members know how important it was that their voice was at the table. And then finally, this last resource is a kind of a database of statewide contact information. So for your local Chamber of Commerce, for your local faith-based organizations, for your local Boy Scout troops. So if you don't know who to contact in your county, open up this document. That will give you links to different websites where you can search for who in your county could you contact for to represent parents, or to represent business, or represent different organizations in your community. Okay. And oh, here's what that document looks like. I forgot to put this slide in. So yeah, so business representatives, and then you would just click on, you know, the link on the right, and that would open up a place where you could search for that. So business, local government, parent, youth serving organizations, faith-based, and community service organizations. Okay. So before we close, I do want to show you the online system. So when you log in, and if you are new to your steering team and you've not been given a username and password, if you're the documentation point person, we need to make sure that you have that so you can start doing the documentation. And also there's going to be resources in here for the council recruitment point person. So if you don't have the username and password, you need to contact the other members of your steering team and make sure that you have that. So the first thing I'm going to click on is over here in the process, in the left navigation bar. I'm going to click on the process, and that will bring me up to the process tab. I'm going to scroll down to Get Ready School Counseling Council. So the video that I'm recording right now that you're watching, that will be linked here. And then enter the School Counseling Council roster. I'm going to click on this. And you'll see that there's two resources. I'm going to start with the first one, add enter an advisory council member. So I'm going to click enter. And I've already entered some members because I wanted to be able to show you the next tool with them. But when you're ready to enter a member, and in this case I'm going to scroll down to get past all the current members, I'm going to add a new person, and I'm just going to put in that person's name, Jane Doe, her email address, doe@gmail.com, her phone number, and then perspective. So at this point we want to leave perspective blank. What we're going to do is at your first council meeting, we're going to ask people what perspective they bring to the table. When we talk to Jane Doe and Jane reports, Jane might say, my perspective is that I'm a businesswoman in the community. And so that's what you would type in here, businesswoman in the community, or business representative. So, but the thing is, you may have asked Jane Doe to be on your council because she's also Hispanic. And for your purposes, she's representing the Hispanic community. Or you might have invited Jane because she was a parent of a free and reduced lunch student. But whatever perspective Jane comes up with, that's the one we want to put in here. So she is a representative of the business community. She has a business community perspective. Okay, so why that's important is because we want Jane to know that if she doesn't come back to the next meeting, there is no business perspective there from her perspective. Okay, so and then also if she doesn't come back, you know that you don't have a Hispanic perspective or a free reduced lunch perspective, but from Jane's point of view, she's the business voice on that table, and she has to come back. She has to participate in all discussions, because if she's not there, the business community is not represented. Also, it tells her that in your discussions, it's really important for her to speak up because she has a perspective that's unique, that's not like anybody else's. So that's really, really important, but we're not going to fill it out now. We're going to wait until after your first meeting, and then you'll come back and enter the perspectives in. So I've got all the information I'm going to put in right now. I'm going to hit save. And that has added Jane Doe to to your list. And here she is, Jane Doe. And then I'm going to go back. And let's say that I'm lost in the system, and I don't know how to get back. I'm totally lost. So anytime you get lost, just go back to the Process tab. And now I'm where I started, and I can go back down to Get Ready School Counseling Council, and I'm going to enter the school counseling roster. And now I'm back to where I started. Okay, so the email, the advisory council list. So this is, there will be times when you're going to email the advisory council to thank them for coming to a meeting, or to announce another meeting, or maybe something else. So if you click on this report, this gives you everybody's email addresses with commas in between them, and then you can just copy this and put it in your to box in an email. If you're using Microsoft Outlook does not like commas, so if you just click this, that'll change all the commas to semicolon, which Microsoft does like. So, okay. And then I forgot to show you the council report. This is after you have everybody entered. This just gives you one report that you can use as a steering team member to contact people. So, okay. Then the other thing that I wanted to just make sure that you're aware of how to get to is, again, over here in the left navigation bar, I've used the Process tab, and then the other tab that you'll most likely want to use is the Manual tab. So I click that. Here's the Steering Team Manual. I'm going to scroll down to Advisory Council Recruitment, and here's all of those resources that we just talked about. So, okay, so that's it. If you have questions, make sure that you contact us. Remember, we've talked about this before, but we have kind of an informal rule in RSC called the 5-minute rule, which our staff quickly changed to the 5-second rule. And that rule is, if you are ever confused for 5 seconds, you need to call us and let us help you. We were all educators, and we know that as an educator you don't have a lot of time because you're with kids all the time, and so you're calling us on your passing period, or you're doing this work on on your prep period, and we know that you can't wait for 3 days for to get information that you need. So please, please, please contact us. I tell you what, if you don't know who to contact, your school will be assigned you will be assigned a strategic planning specialist, but there's our phone number. If you don't know who that person is, call us and we'll make sure that we tell you who that is. So, okay, that's great, and thank you for doing this work. Again, if you are the council recruitment point person, you do not have to do all this work by yourself. Divvy up the work. Make one person on your steering team responsible for recruiting business and industry. Another person can be responsible for recruiting parents. So spread it out. That way the task is light, and we're really needing the entire council to be in place before the first meeting, which will happen next month. So we really need to get after this fast and be recruiting those members. So, okay, thanks everyone. Call us if you need help, and we look forward to our next tips, which will be on how to have that first meeting with your council. Thanks so much.